Hello, beloveds. So, I would like to share this very beautiful dream that I had last year, September, about the wealth transfer. After I had received this dream, I discovered that the enemy will try to stop the wealth transfer, but they will fail miserably. Okay, so this dream started with me walking towards the house that I grew up in, my parents' house, and there seemed to be some kind of event that was taking place there. And so, as I was walking alongside the left side of the house, I could see groups of people starting to gather towards the back. And people were still coming in droves. Now, I noticed something odd and quite out of place. Even in the dream, it was odd and out of place. Near to the rear of the house, on the side, there was this cage. And it appeared to be built in the side of the house, built in the walls. And there was this cage. And you know what this cage was holding, beloveds? This cage was holding a lion, a fully grown lion. But according to everyone, he was a pet lion. And I found that to be quite odd. I was thinking to myself, what in the world is a fully grown lion doing here at my house? And so some of my friends and family members suggested that I could go ahead and pet it because it's a pet lion. However, I declined from the mere fact that it's a lion. And so I moved towards the back of the house and took the stairs to head directly inside of the kitchen. Now remember that there was a great group of people standing around the back. And so I was moving amidst the crowd heading towards the kitchen area. So once I'd walked through the kitchen doors, I got excited because they seemed to be preparing a massive feast of all kinds of food types, of all kinds of meat. And it was very clear that this feast was almost ready. It was very, very near to be ready. Like, I remember specifically seeing them frying like the last pieces of sliced fish and other types of food. And so this feast was like minutes away from being ready to be served. I also remember that attending to this feast were a few popular YouTubers, which surprised me. So while I was still there, savoring the scents and the sights of these delicious meals being prepared in front of me, I saw this one guy walking by with a cup of soup in his hands. And I then thought to myself, where did he get soup from? Because it was clear to me that nothing was being served as yet. And so I looked around and I didn't see the place where they were cooking the soup. It was at a different location. And so I decided to myself, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and get me some soup. Because usually that's what they start with. They would usually drink a cup of soup before they start to share the meals. And so I decided to go ahead and find the soup pot. And this here is one of my favorite parts of the dream. So, beloveds, I'm now walking in the direction towards where the soup pot is. And while I was walking on the path that led to where it was, suddenly and without warning, these giant snakes, venomous snakes, poisonous snakes, started springing up out of the ground. They weren't at all visible because they came up from beneath the ground. They started springing up, a lot of them, literally in an attempt to try to block or hinder me from heading towards where the soup was, because the soup was being prepared at a different location. And so on my way there, these snakes literally sprung up from beneath the ground. To my surprise, and they startled me. But this is what happened, beloveds. The first one didn't even get to land back on the ground before being smashed in the head by some long, flexible metal pole-looking kind of thing. And what was happening was angels. It was like an angel army. From the moment they started to spring out, in reaction to them springing out of the earth, a mighty angel army, an army of the Lord, came with these long metal poles, which reminds me kind of like, I don't know how many of you guys have ever seen the anime Dragon Ball Z. It reminds me kind of like Goku's power pole, and these poles were very long. And these angels just came in such precision. That's a key word right there. The precision that they were using to smash these snakes in their heads and killing them while they were springing out of this dirt. I tell you, it was so satisfying for me to watch. It was tellement délicieux, which in French means so delicious to watch. I mean, that was so satisfying. I mean, that was so cool, but it was more satisfying than it was cool to me, seeing that. I mean, none of them escaped, and it was a lot of them. From the moment they started coming up, they would just get smashed in the head. And so they died instantly with the power and the precision and the synchronization of these angels. These angels were moving almost to the sound of a music, kind of, but they were in perfect sync and perfect union. And these snakes were all destroyed. And so my path was cleared. And afterwards, I continued to go get my soup, to go fetch me some soup. So I discovered that where this pot of soup was literally now high up, almost on the top or on the side of a cliff, on a very dangerous place. And so I remember while I was up there, I was feeling very apprehensive, because you have to be very careful of your footing and watch your steps. And so I remember while I was still yet making my way up, trying to find like the best place to put my feet in order to climb further upward, I saw some very tiny snakes that were moving in the cracks of the rocks. And I almost lost my footing for fear of not wanting to step on one of them, which would be a shame for me to fall from that height because of something so small. All because of fear from stepping on these tiny snakes. And that, I believe, is a very powerful lesson and warning for all of us. I remember the feeling of being on the top of this cliff or mountainside up on the heights of this place. It felt really, really good, but at the same time, I had to be careful not to fall off because of these tiny snakes. I had to remind myself not to be afraid of them, these little tiny snakes, but to step on them if they're on my path. And so that's where the experience ended. Now, there isn't much to interpret from this dream, because the message is clear. The lion that was at this feast was none other than the lion from the tribe of Judah, the Lord himself, Yeshua. He's definitely amongst those who will be partaking of this feast, which is the wealth transfer. As a matter of fact, he's the one hosting it, and so that's why he was there. And it was shocking for me to see him there because, it seemed odd to have a lion there at my house. It was just nothing that anyone could have imagined. And the buffet, the different food types, those represent different types of cryptocurrencies. The fact that this feast was almost ready, it was almost finished being prepared, and no one was yet being served, was the exact same thing that's happening right now. The flash crash of Bitcoin and the other cryptocurrencies down to zero is very, very near, is very imminent, and we are all gathered in preparation. I saw popular people from YouTube that was there also at this feast. That surprised me. So, many of you guys here from YouTube, you're most definitely going to be partaking in this flash crash event, because, I saw it. Now, the snakes springing up from out of the ground, this is one of the favorite parts of the dream. They represent hindering spirits, demons. They're literally going to try and stop us from partaking in this low cryptocurrency fishing and this wealth transfer that the Lord has prepared for us. But they will fail, because the Lord of hosts is hosting this feast, and he has the armies of heaven that will make the way clear for his beloved to partake of it. And this is the Lord's good will. Now, the last interpretation is that the tiny snakes represents both fear and pride. So be encouraged, beloveds, and know that no power will be able to stop this Red Sea from parting. Now, that's what I wanted to share with you guys. The Lord King Yahushua bless and keep you all. Love from your brother in Christ.